Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.
We're so pleased to have back on the show Grammy Award winning songwriter, singer. He does it all. He's also an author now and a producer, Desmond Child.
Hey, it's so good to be with you, Eric.
The man, the myth. You know, the last time you came in, you know, you were a little heavier, you were having problems with your knees. You look like a rock star now.
I know I had to do it.
Was it just for the book?
Well, no, it's for my life and, you know, as a whole. It was time, you know, because I'm going to be 70 in another few weeks.
Right.
And it's like, you know, 70 is the new 70.
But at least we're aging well, and you've got a brand new book out, and I'll tell you what, I can't get enough of it, Desmond. Living on a Prayer, Big Songs, Big Life, and it was so interesting. I got to bring this up also to where your personal friend, Paul Stanley,
yes,
writes like a 2-page forward for you.
I know.
That was so heartfelt.
I know. He's my mentor, and he discovered me. I always say that, you know, there'd be no Desmond Child without Paul Stanley.
Well, you know, but also he expressed the same, you know, in that, you know, when he discovered you, you know, with Rouge, when you guys were performing and everything, and he met you and the band, and then he's like, okay, well, I've got to, you know, you guys became close friends, and then you end up writing songs for Kiss. For Kiss,
you know, it was kind of an exchange. He said, well, let's try writing a song together. And so I said, okay. So we wrote a song for Desmond Child and Rouge, my first group.
Right.
And then I wrote a song for him, for Kiss. I think I got the better part of the bargain.
But I mean, you know, you talk about all of the hits that you've written with so many artists, and that's what, you know, I think my favorite parts about the book, Desmond, are not only, you know, the great artists and everything, because we certainly know, you know, your body of work, such as with Jon Bon Jovi, you know, and I mean, I think, you know, what's the one song up to 1 billion plays now on Spotify?
Yes, Livin On a Prayer, which I co-wrote with Jon Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora.
Right.
And we just got the announcement that it hit 1 billion plays. And think on Spotify, and can you imagine that Spotify's only been around 8 years?
Right.
So how many more billions and billions and billions? You know?
It's got to feel great for you, though, because, I mean, you're one of those incredible songwriters, too, and also a performer, entertainer. You do it all, Desmond, but to have songs that have been, you know, recorded and you've co-written and collaborated with Cher, you know, with Barbra Streisand, with, you know, Joan Jett.
Absolutely.
Steven Tyler. I mean, you know, even when you talk about, you know, the blurbs in here that are written by so many of these major artists, and they're all thanking you for collaborating with them.
Well, I think I got the better end of the bargain because I've had a beautiful, you know, home life, and, you know, with my husband, and our sons are now 21, and we've, you know, made our home Nashville, and they grew up great here.
Right.
And so they were ready for the world. And so you know, a lot of artists, they, you know, they have to be on the road all the time. They pay the price.
Definitely.
You know, so it's been a blessing that I didn't become a rock star.
But you kind of did. You know what I mean?
Kind of did, but no. I really always wanted to be one, but it wasn't in the cards. My destiny was to help all of these artists find themselves and find the new direction for them in many cases, and those songs are still in their set.
Right.
And so billions and billions and billions of people are hearing my songs every day.
But also, I've got to say this, Desmond, as having you on the show in the past, and really knowing your career, I enjoy your interpretations of the songs also. Because,
thank you.
And I think, you know, speaking about the book also, you really shared your heart in this. I mean, you know, some of this stuff is heart-wrenching on how you even made it through with your family, you know, escaping from Cuba and growing up in Florida. You really shared your heart in this. And to me, knowing you as Desmond Child, you know, how you stayed positive this whole time. I mean, through so many hardships in your life.
You know, so many things did happen, but I learned from my mother, no matter how many hard things that she went through, she was a songwriter also. And, you know, she had many marriages and many in-between marriages of sorts. And her heart was always broken. So she always had material for her sad love songs. But she showed me how to be a winner. And I just knew that I had to win, not only for myself, but for her too.
Right.
Because we lived in the projects of Liberty City. And my childhood was hard. But I swore that I'd make it, and I did make it. I made it, I swear.
and also, I mean, you know, some of these things that, you know, all of us, you know, have had rough lives, you know, many of us, but, you know, to where you find out the man that you thought was your father was not your father.
That's right.
And I mean, you know, so much of your life has almost been, you know, like a song in a lot of ways, Desmond. It's like it was giving you material all the time.
It really has been. And so I never run out of material or ideas to bring to a songwriting session. And, you know, that's what I love about Nashville is, you know, you go into a writing room sometimes with people you've never met before. And, you know, in that sacred circle, there's nothing else. Everything falls away and everybody's sharing their heart and soul. And that's why I love songwriting. And it never gets old.
Well, and I mean, to be able to come up with the hits and the hooks, I mean, you know, and you've told me some of the behind the scenes stories, and certainly you've got some great stories in here as well, you know, working with Aerosmith, working with all these incredible artists. But, you know, you aren't, you know, like this bigger than life personality about it. You're still humble about it, Desmond.
Well,
and
not,
the pictures,
not really.
the pictures
not really
speak.
Humble.
The pictures speak, though. You know that you have in this
humble.
book. I disagree. I mean, it's like you look at the people that you've worked with within the rock and roll, you know, and all genres of music, and the pictures and the stories and everything else. But also, you know, with your lifestyle coming up at that time, it was not hard because you're hanging out with all rock and roll people.
Well, you know, there was always a glass ceiling of being a gay man and being in the hardcore, you know, heavy metal, hetero world of rock and roll.
Right.
It was always okay for me to be a co-writer, but the producer is always the boss. And, you know, I found it hard to get work producing bands. So, you know, the bands didn't want the authority figure to be a gay man. And so I always felt that glass ceiling. Yeah. So they threw me, you know, all these kinds of unique characters like Ronnie Spector, Cher, Joan Jett, you know, Alice Cooper,
right.
Meatloaf, you know. And so eventually when, you know, rock, which is now having a tremendous resurgence, especially the songs that I collaborated on. But, you know, there was a moment when Smells Like Teen Spirit was going on 24/7 on MTV, and all the bands that I worked with couldn't get on television anymore. So, you know, it was kind of like, what do I do? And so the first thing I did was head to Nashville, because I had been in a country bar, I think in the Valley in California, and I heard what I thought was a Bon Jovi song, but the singer had a twang. And I found out who it was, Garth Brooks. And I said, okay, that's where I'm going. That's my kind of music. And I showed up in Nashville. Victoria Shaw, who had written songs with Garth, was my first target. And the song we wrote, Where Your Road Leads, ended up being on Trisha Yearwood's album with Garth doing the duet.
And now you've got a hit song out with Dolly and Joan Jett.
Absolutely. You know, I Hate Myself for Loving You was the first song I wrote with Joan Jett. It's also the Sunday night football theme.
Right.
And now Dolly's cut it on her new album called Rockstar. And Joan Jett is featured. I haven't heard it yet, but I can't wait.
Well, you know, and to me, Desmond, it seems like you flourished in spite of people trying to hold you back. You know, you never allowed them to hold you back in what you were trying to do with your career.
I just, you know, step over the body and keep marching on. I mean, that's all you can do.
Right.
I mean, I'm a bit thin-skinned. I'm a Scorpio. That's why I would never have made a good rock star, because anything anyone says, kind of like, I keep thinking about it. Yeah. Like, you know, it could be a glowing review in a periodical or something. One little thing negative.
Right.
That's all I think about. So the great thing about the great stars that I've worked with, Cher, Bon Jovi, Barbra Streisand, they're so above it. It just you know, doesn't affect them, doesn't touch them. They can't let it.
Right. Well, what do you think your mom would think about seeing this article in the New York Times talking about your brand new book and all of your accomplishments?
I think my mom would have been very, very proud of me, but probably would have thought, well, why isn't it me? Because my mom, at the same time of being supportive and nurturing, she was also very competitive. And so that's what made her a fascinating character.
Right.
And in my book, because when I grew up, you know, she was a single mom, so she and I were like brother and sister, really, growing up. And I talk about her a lot through the book. And I right away at the top, I say, I have to be careful not to let this become her autobiography and not mine.
Right. Well, and also being the family man that you are, with your two sons doing so well, you know, you have to feel vilified.
I do.
With your life.
I do. You know, we moved to Nashville not knowing if, you know, my husband Curtis and I, if our family would be well received. And right away, you know, all credit due to Curtis, who's just the loveliest person, most nurturing man ever. All the soccer moms and dads, they just loved him. And I had people come up to me with tears in their eyes and they said, we'd never met a gay person before. We never knew that gay people could have a family. And so that made a huge difference, you know, growing up for our kids here in Nashville. We have not experienced prejudice. You know, we hear about it, but, you know, it's like, I'm hoping that it's just a phase and people grow out of that.
Well, speaking of which, I don't think people are going to grow out of wanting a copy of this book. And I've got to bring up, too, now working on a documentary.
That's right. I've been working on a documentary for the last 3 years. I did a show in Athens, Greece, at the Parthenon called Desmond Child Rocks the Parthenon. And Alice Cooper was in it, Bonnie Tyler, Rita Wilson, Kip Winger, the Rasmus from Finland, all these wonderful stars, George Lembesis, Sakis Ruvas.
And Desmond Child.
Yeah, and we sold it out. And it was a 2,000-year-old amphitheater called the Odeon of Herodotus Atticus, built, you know, so long ago, and it's still a working theater.
Right.
And it's outdoors, it's so gorgeous. And we filmed every single aspect of the show and backstage and all that. We had 12 cameras going. And I think I'm going to make that the heartbeat of my documentary, you know, with the idea it's like, well, for one night, I get to be a star. And so then we've already have, you know, all these interviews of all the people I've worked with, you know, saying wonderful things about me. They better.
Which are all true.
I paid them off.
Oh.
And so I'm very excited about working with, you know, our director, Heather Winters, and our great editor, Lennon Nersessian, named after John Lennon. And we're going to make a documentary where you get to see this, you know, all the behind the scenes.
Right.
And, you know, that's interesting.
Oh, definitely.
It's as interesting sometimes, or more interesting than what goes on the stage.
Well, it's just like the stories in here, and I've got to bring this up too. You're in the Songwriter Hall of Fame. You're in the Latina Songwriter Hall of Fame.
Latin Songwriters.
Latin, thank you. And so, and then also you've got La Vida Loca, which is in the Library of Congress now.
Yes, yes. In the registry of recorded works that had an impact on American culture and the world. And so every year they pick 25 recordings, and Vida Loca was one of them. And we made recording history back then because it was the first song recorded entirely digitally.
Right.
That we used no analog elements. The drum machine, everything, all in the box, mixed it, all in the box, and it made it all the way to #1. And it was recorded in the Wall Street Journal that we had, you know, it's like Alexander Graham Bell.
You know, and it's still in my workout playlist.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And so I think about you when I hear that song, and I got to bring this up too. Now you're musical.
Yes, I've been working on the story of my family before and after the Cuban Revolution,
Right.
and it's called Cuba Libre, and we started it in 2005. That's how long theater can take. It takes longer to put on a Broadway show than to paint the Sistine Chapel. I mean, I swear.
That's incredible. I mean, you know,
And-
especially considering the speed at which you write and co-write songs.
Yes.
Because I know how fast you do that.
I know, but this journey, you know, many different directors, and now we're getting ready to do another workshop in December in New York City. It's going to be a backers audition and all that, and we're very excited. And hopefully within the next couple of years, we'll be on Broadway.
How amazing. Congratulations. And
Thank
I've got to
you.
bring this up too. In your spare time, when you're not writing hit songs and coming out with your incredible book, all of these things that you have going in your musical, you also have a skincare line now.
Yes, it's called Vida Loca Skin Life. And people can go on the website, www.vidalocaskinlife.com. And I've always been into lotions and potions. I mean, when I was little, you know, instead of going out and playing ball with the boys, I was sneaking into my mom's room, and she had all these little jars and bottles and perfumes and all that, and I'd open each one and smell it and, you know, put it on and all this kind of stuff. So when I travel now, everyone makes fun of me. I have like 2 big bags of lotions and potions. But I always love scents, and I love natural ingredients, so it's 100% natural. And you know what? Everybody has a skin line. Why not me? Like Brad Pitt has a skin line, right?
Right.
But the only thing is that if you buy his skin line, you end up looking like Brad Pitt.
Well, I like it
that's,
also.
That's the promise anyway.
Yeah, well, I like it also, though, with your skincare line, Desmond, to where it's using images of you from when you were younger.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's so great to see the then and now, but also, you don't look your age now.
Oh, well, it's a lot of Vida
And-
Loca Skin Life.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, that's like going,
I pile it on, pile it on.
you know, I mean, but you've got to feel good about your accomplishments now to be at this age and still creating and still working with the top artists, all these things happening. It seems like your life and career has gotten bigger in the last 10 years than it was in the first part.
I know. I mean, there's in any creative life or career, there's a lot of ups and downs. And you know, I've had peaks, especially in the 80s, when I had like 5 songs in the top 20. You know, either going up or going down, but they were there. And so then, you know, rock died. And so I had to reinvent myself, and that's when I moved to Nashville and started pursuing country music and Latin music. And that's when I met Ricky Martin. So I managed to keep going. And then after 9/11, which was very traumatic, I had 4 studios in Miami. Nobody would come to work. Nobody would get on a plane. And that's when file sharing happened, and the record companies started pulling back on all the budgets. And I got invited to work. Clive Davis invited me to work on American Idol, and so I was one of the first producers to work with Kelly Clarkson.
Amazing.
And Carrie Underwood, I produced her first #1 single, "Inside Your Heaven."
Wow.
So I found a life for myself, you know, working with Clay Aiken, the song "Invisible."
Great song.
You know, I worked with Bo Bice. I love Bo Bice.
Such a good guy.
He's such a great guy, and he's, you know, and I met Jennifer Hudson, and I ended up bringing her into Bat Out of Hell 3 when
Right.
I produced Meatloaf.
And I love the pictures of you and Meatloaf in here.
Right.
And with your family. It's just like, it's such great pictures.
And so I've had a really extraordinary life, and then the last 10 years has been all about my musical, but I still do my day job.
Right.
Like right now, I'm co-producing with Marty Fredriksson, the band The Rasmus from Finland. And so, you know, we were just, you know, on the phone yesterday going through lyrics, and they're getting ready to come to Nashville to record their album. And, you know, I'm going to be there, I'm going to be working, but I'm also wearing every kind of hat possible. And I'm also performing. I'm going to Abu Dhabi with Rita Wilson's Liner Notes, also featuring Richard Marx and Emily Warren. And we're going to go there to do this Grammy and Berklee School of Music branded program. Wow. So I'll be turning 70 in Abu Dhabi. Who can say that?
Not many. Not many at all. But it seems like to me, Desmond, you know, knowing you for this many years and having you on the shows in the past, where it seems like the creative force that doing this has kept you young and passionate all along.
Well, also having kids, I mean, Curtis and I had kids when I was 48. So that's considered an old dad. So I had to keep up with them. And so, you know, I think I'm doing okay. I'm you know, holding my ground. Mm-hmm. And it was very challenging.
Right.
You know, because I wasn't always I wasn't ever an athletic person. I really wasn't the dad that you would throw ball with. You know, they'd throw it and I'd just drop it.
But also, you were a great parent, though, Desmond.
Well,
and especially with the, you know, the trips
my
and everything
husband,
else.
Curtis, is the great parent. I mean, I'm like the third child that never grows up.
Aren't all musicians and artists that way, though?
I guess.
And you are that. You know, I was thinking, too, you know, once again, with the book and with everything else you've got going, you know, at a point, you know, and I know you've had success with your past albums and certainly, you know, with the music that you've put out, recording your hits, it'd be fun to do an album to where some of those artists come on the album with you.
Oh, now you're talking.
I'm just saying that might be, I mean, in your spare time.
It's payback time.
In your spare time, Desmond.
Actually, my original group, Desmond Child and Rouge, is still going strong. If people go on, you know, Instagram, they'll see Desmond Child and Rouge, and there'll not be a picture of us now. They're all from, you know, when we were,
I remember when you guys came out.
New York cult band, and we're recording new songs. And starting next year, we're going to start releasing Desmond Child and Rouge. So that never dies.
Right.
Because the three women I work with, Maria Vidal, Diana Grasselli, and Miriam Valley, they have gorgeous voices together, a very unique sound, almost like ABBA or something like that.
Right.
And you know, Maria Vidal, by the way, when we had that group, she was my girlfriend. And, you know, yes, I had a girlfriend. And, you know, we founded Desmond Child and Rouge, and she worked as a waitress in a diner called Once Upon a Stove. And they gave her a special name. They called her Gina, because of Gina Lollobrigida. She reminded everybody, because she was very vivacious.
Right.
And so she'd come home with her little uniform with Gina on the thing. So when I went to collaborate with Jon Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora, Livin On a Prayer, John said he wanted to write a song about a couple that was struggling and all of this. And I thought of those times that I was with Maria in that one little studio apartment, 4 years, trying to get Desmond Child and Rouge to get off the ground. And, you know, the line, you know, Gina works the diner all day, working for her man. She brings home her pay for love. And I was home just writing songs.
Just iconic. You know, and I've got to bring up also, inside the book are the handwritten notes from the, I mean, it's, come on. I mean, it's legend now.
Yeah, you know.
I mean, what would, you know, the young Desmond Child, you know, as a child when you started writing songs and got into, you know, doing the music, what would Desmond at that age think now of all the success that you've achieved?
Well, you see, my mother was a dreamer. And she always said, you know, even when we, you know, I mean, the junkie car was outside, had no gas, couldn't even drive it. She said, we're going to live in a mansion in Miami Beach. And so she always opened my mind to the idea that there was something to go towards, something to live for, something to reach for. So I'm not surprised, because she was my mom.
Right.
And so I'm a, you know, it's magical thinking, I guess, but that's how I've sustained myself. And that's also how I motivate people that work with me.
Right.
We have to believe in things that are impossible in order to try to achieve them.
Yes. And obviously you've done it. I'll tell you what, you want to get your own copy of the book, Desmond Child, Livin On a Prayer, Big Songs, Big Life, incredible book. You're going to want to read it cover to cover, probably a few times, share it with friends. Also, the documentary coming out in the near future. We've got the musical coming out, the skincare line, and new music from Desmond Child and Rouge next year.
Yes, yes.
You'll have to come back on the show.
Oh, I'm ready to come back.
Well, and I want to make sure that viewers know, where do they need to go for everything Desmond Child, because they're going to want a signed copy of this.
If you go on my socials, at Desmond.child, I don't think that Facebook is the same address. I think it's just Desmond Child. There are links to everything.
Okay.
And so right now it's like very exciting, because they told me yesterday that we had reached number 3 on the Amazon, rock biographies.
Right.
And the only one, the only real threat ahead of me is Bernie Taupin, because he just released his book.
I think this
that's
is number
understandable.
1. I think this is number 1, though.
Well, if people buy, if you buy, get me to number 1.
Right. And they're going to want signed copies, Desmond.
I've already signed a bunch.
Yeah, you're going to have to sign more.
Yes, and there's links for the signed copies.
And also the audiobook.
Yes.
To where Paul Stanley even reads his foreword,
and
then you read the book.
It's hard to read the book.
It's got to be emotional.
It's very emotional, and to keep your voice sounding interesting and exciting, you have to put a lot of energy, and then books aren't meant to be read aloud. They're meant to be read in your head. So some of these sentences are so long, by the time I get to the middle of a sentence, I run out of breath. So I have to start all over again, and I can only do like 10 pages every 6 hours or something like that. But it's going to be great. And it's, I'm going to start sneaking in some music. I don't know if anybody's read or heard Bono's book, Surrender.
Right.
And it's 40 hours. And he's singing and saying poetry, and he's doing voices. I do voices. Right. When I have a conversation in the book, I don't just read it.
Right.
I try to do my best imitation.
And you bring it to life.
And I bring it to life, and that's kind of fun too.
It's incredible. I'll tell you what, this is going to be a number 1 bestseller, I promise you. Desmond Child, Living on a Prayer, big songs, big life. Desmond, thanks for coming back on the show.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Sponsored by the Big 98, Nashville's #1 for new country and the home of the Bobby Bones Show.